The first thing we are going to see in this course is how to navigate through the program, how to open and close the windows, and how to divide the windows. We have two types of views. We have the session view and the arrangement view. We will also talk about their differences and how we will use them. We are going to see how this toolbar works. We will see the Midi tracks, the audio tracks, and their differences. We will talk about the return and master channels. I will show you how to insert tracks and channels, how to change the color and the size, and how the track controls work. We will see this menu, how to organize it by color, our samples, our sounds. We will see the sounds, the drums, Max for Life, plugins, and all this. We will see how to insert MIDI clips in the MIDI tracks and how to write notes. We will see how to edit notes, how we make them bigger, smaller, how we raise or lower the octaves, how we divide the grid, and how we duplicate the bar. We will see how we can play the notes using the MIDI keyboard or using our computer keys. We will also see how we insert audio clips in audio tracks, how all these parameters are regulated, how we record MIDI clips and audio clips. We will also see how to duplicate the clips and how to organize our scenes. We are going to see how to record in the arrangement, and how to rearrange our song in the arrangement. How to add audio and MIDI effects to our tracks, how to modify our parameters, and how to automatize our tracks. We'll also see how to set up our initial preferences and export. For Mac users, the preferences will be in Live Preferences, and when I set Control, it means Command. And for Windows users, preferences will be in Options Preferences, and when I set Control, it is just Control. You will also learn how to use the majority of the Ableton Live instruments, such as rags, simpler, tension, impulse, wavetable, electric, and audio and MIDI effects, such as Arpeggiator, Chord, pitch, random, scale, velocity, autopan, EQ3, simple delay, and much more. And in summary, this will be the structure of your Ableton Live 10 course. If you are ready for this new and exciting adventure, let's go for it! Hello and welcome to this new chapter, How to Navigate the Program of Ableton Live 10. In these two corners, we have two combos, which allow us to open and close these auxiliary windows. In this one, we can see the menu, and here we can drag our instruments and effects. We can see the program in session view or in arrangement view. You can switch views by pressing these buttons here, or by pressing your computer's tab key. They are pretty much the same, it just changes your tracks and channels point of view. Here we have MIDI tracks, audio tracks, return channels, and the master channel. To insert MIDI tracks, audio tracks, or channels, we need to right-click and select what we need. We could duplicate the tracks. First, we need to select them and then press Ctrl D. We could move their position. We could rename them by pressing right-click, rename. And we could also change the size and color. We could select all the tracks or part of them. To select all, we need to press this one first, press Shift, and then press the last one. Now you could resize using the cursor. To change the color, we need to right-click and then choose the color. To select alternate tracks, press this one first, press Ctrl, and then press the rest of the tracks. And we can change the color and the size too. Now let's insert an audio clip into the audio track. We can adjust the volume of the clips with this control here. And this blue light should be activated. Now we select the audio clip that we like and drag it to the audio track. In the audio clip, we could change parameters such as volume, semitones, but we will talk more about that in another chapter later on. Now we insert a MIDI clip into the MIDI track. We select the clip we like and drag it, and we can open it. The main difference between the audio clips and MIDI clips is that in audio clips, you could see the shape of the audio waveform. And in the MIDI clips, you can see the piano roll, where you could write your MIDI notes. To write notes, we could press the pen up here, or we could press the big key in our keyboard. And now we can write some notes. We could change the size of our grid. We could make it smaller. So now here we have this MIDI clip and this audio clip. If we like this loop, we could duplicate it. Just right click on the loop bar, duplicate loop. We can do it again. So now we have a loop 4 bars long. We could also duplicate this clip by selecting it first and then pressing Ctrl D. We could do it again. So now we have 3 equal clips. Now I select the second clip and select all the notes by pressing Ctrl A. And now I am going to move it 1 octave down by pressing Shift and the down arrow key. Now I select this clip here and select all the notes by pressing Ctrl A. And now I am going to move it 1 octave up by pressing Shift and the up arrow key. So now we have 3 clips with different octaves. Now I am going to do the same with the audio clip. I select it first and then press Ctrl D 2 times to duplicate. So now I have 3 clips. The second clip I am going to move down 2 semitones. And now in the third clip I am going to move it up 2 semitones. So now here we have 3 scenes available. Scene 1, Scene 2 and Scene 3. I can try and combine them. The session view is very useful for live performances, getting ideas and organizing scenes. Once we have the scenes in order, we will record them in the arrangement. Now we are going to record it in the arrangement. To do that, we have to press this button here. And now we play the scenes in order. Once it is done, we change to the arrangement view. Now we have to press this red button here in order to work on the arrangement. And now all these tracks are available to work with. Here we could move our clips. We could make them longer, add effects, and automatize the tracks. Pressing play, we could see how all the clips in line with the timeline will be played. We will talk more about the session view and arrangement view in another chapter later on. Here we have the tracks controls. In this window, we have our menu. In categories, we have sounds. If we like any, we could assign it a color. Just press right-click and select the color. We could also right-click and rename it. Here we have drums, instruments, audio effects, MIDI effects, Max for Live, plugins, clips, samples, and places. We will also talk about this menu in more detail in another chapter later on. I hope you enjoyed this chapter and found it interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter toolbar of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, I am going to explain how the toolbar works. Here we have the tab, which allows us to adjust our tempo. Here we can see the speed of our tempo. Here we can temporarily increase or decrease our tempo. Here we can see our bar time signature. The denominator tells us in how many parts we divide the bar, and the numerator tells us the number of beats per bar. Here we have the metronome to indicate the speed of our tempo. With this dial here, we can adjust the volume of the metronome and the samples. Here we have quantization to choose when your clips will be synchronized. Here we have 3 blocks of numbers. The first block shows the beginning of the song in the arrangement. The first number moves the marker 1 bar at a time. The second number moves the marker 1/4 bar at a time. And the third number moves the marker 1/16 bar at a time. The second block shows the beginning of the loop. As you can see, moving the numbers of the first block, the beginning of the song, changes. But moving the numbers of the second block, what changes is the beginning of the loop. And the third block shows the length of the loop. Here we have play and stop. Pressing this button here, we activate record in the arrangement view. And by pressing this button here, we activate record in session view. Now here we have this block of buttons. With the plus button, if activated, we can record in the arrangement, but without deleting the notes that are already there. For example, now it is recording, but it is deleting the notes. Pressing this plus button, now it is recording, but the old notes are not deleted. With this button, we can arm the automation. It means that recording in arrangement or in session view, if we change any parameter, it will register in the record as an automation. And you can see it in arrangement view and in the session view. Let's try it. This button re-enables the automation. For example, if an automation is already created and this parameter is manually moved, this automation will be deleted and this button here will flash. You can re-enable this automation by pressing this button. Let's try it. Press play, and if I move this dial, the automation is deleted and the button will flash. To reactivate it, just press this flashing button again. Here we have the capture button. It is very useful because we can practice ideas without recording them. And if we find some melody that we like, we can go back to it just by pressing this button, Capture, here. Let's try. Now press Capture and it will show us everything we have been practicing. Okay, here we have these three buttons. This one is to activate our loop, and these two determine the recording area. Activating this first button, we create the record's starting point, and activating the second button, we create the record's ending point. Here we have our pen. Activating this button, we could write notes in our Midi editor. This button can also be activated by pressing the B key on our keyboard. Activating this button, we can play the notes with our remote Midi keyboard or with our computer's keys. With this key button, we can activate or deactivate functions using our computer's keys. For example, if we want to activate Scene 1, select Scene 1 first, press key button, press number 1 on our keyboard, and press key button again. So now every time we press the number 1 on our computer, the Scene 1 will be activated. We can undo this function by pressing the key button, pressing right-click on Scene 1, delete map, and finally pressing the key button again. This function could be applied to everything that appears in color when we press the key button. Here we have the Midi buttons, which works in nearly the same way as the key button. The difference is that all these parameters that appear in color, you can control them with your remote Midi keyboard, and you can program it in the same way that we have done with the key button. And here we could see our CPU load meter. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Tracks, Channels and Controls of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter I will show you the tracks, channels and their controls. We have two types of tracks, MIDI tracks and audio tracks. In MIDI tracks we can insert MIDI clips, and write our notes. And in audio tracks we can insert audio clips. And here we have our channels, the reverb, the delay, the return, and the master. Here we have these buttons, which can open and close the controls. The R button can open and close the return channels. The S button can open and close the sends. With sends, we can send part of the sound to our channels A, B, and C that correspond to reverb, delay, and return. If I turn the dial A up, it sends the sound to the reverb. If I turn the dial B up, it sends the sound to the delay. And the dial C will send the sound to the return. The I/O buttons represent the inputs and outputs. In Midi from and audio from, we need to select where our inputs are coming from. In audio tracks, in audio from, the signal can come from our microphone or from our audio interface if it is installed. And in Midi tracks, in Midi from, the signal can come from our computer keyboard or from our Midi keyboard. And in Midi to and audio to, we select where we send our outputs that could go to the master or to the audio interface if it is installed. If our Midi keyboard is not here, we have to go to Preferences, Midi, we look for it here, we select it and activate it. And we need to do the same with the audio interface. We have to go to Preferences, Audio, and we select the audio interface on Audio Input and Output device. We will look at the monitor in Auto Off and the M button, the measure, in another chapter in Auto Off, Record and Quantize. With this button D, the track delay, we can delay the track when it plays in milliseconds. Let's record a few claps on the audio track, and then with delay, let's do a public effect. So, I switch to the arrangement view, arm the track, and record some claps. Press this red button here, and now we can work on our clip. We prepare the clip that we like. Copy it and paste it in Session View. We open the clip with double click. We select the loop we want. Right-click, select Crop Sample, press the loop and try it. Now we select the track and duplicate it 2 times with Ctrl D. So now we have 3 equal clips. If we play Scene 1, we will hear the 3 clips at the same time. But if we delete any of these clips, we will get more dynamic claps, generating a public effect. Now we could change some parameters. For example, to this first clip, I am going to turn up the volume and lower some semitones. I will also change the volume, selecting the envelope and selecting track volume. So now we have this red line here, and with this pen, I could modify the volume line to generate some more realistic effects. We do the same with this second clip. I turn up the volume, I raise some semitones, and I modify the volume line. And we do the same with the third clip. And now we play this scene all together. And as you can see, the public effect is more realistic. And finally, we have this X button here, the crossfader, that can give priority to one track over another. In the track 1, I select A, and in the track 2, I select B. Now I press play and if I move the crossfader to the left, we will only hear the track A. And if I move it to the right, we will only hear the track B. You can choose up to 7 different crossfader types. This could be really useful to play in live performances. By pressing this Midi button, you can see that the crossfader can be mapped. So that means that it can be controlled by a remote Midi keyboard. And this is all about tracks, channels, and controls. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter menu of Ableton Live 10. To open this menu, we need to click this combo here. This menu is divided into collections, categories, and places. We can organize by color, our sounds, our drums, instruments, and even the audio and MIDI effects. We just press right-click and assign it a color. They could also be renamed by pressing right-click Rename. Okay, here we have the categories. In sounds, we have all these sounds available. Here we have the drums. The drums can be drum hits or drum rack. If we press this combo, we will see all the drum hits available. These drums are just one sound. And here we have the drum rack with all these presets. If we like one, we double-click it and the drum rack will open. Now all the sounds which were in the drum rack will be here completely separated. If I open the clip, all the sounds will appear in our piano roll, ready to write our notes. Here we can see which sounds are playing. We can do solo, mute, we can also change the parameters in each sound. If we press double-click on the track, we will see the drum rack. If we press double-click on the clip, we will see the piano roll. We could also change these screens by clicking down here. Okay, and here we have all these instruments. To open one instrument, we press double click and the piano roll will open, where we can write our notes. Okay, I am going to explain one thing here. Here we have our instrument. Here we have our Midi. And what we hear is the audio. If we keep our notes and change the instrument, the sound will also change. In the instrument, we could also change the parameters. Okay, here we have all these audio effects. Each audio effect has different presets. For example, if we open this echo and now we open this other one, we will see the same echo but with different presets. But all these effects come from the original echo. The audio effects can be used in MIDI tracks and in audio tracks. And here we have the Midi effects, which can only be used in Midi tracks. If I select a Midi effect, I could drag it into a Midi track, but I could not drag it into an audio track. However, I could drag an audio effect into a Midi track and into an audio track. Okay, now I am going to drag one Midi effect into the Midi track and drag one audio effect into the same Midi track. And now, as you can see, the instrument will go in the middle of them. The Midi effect will be before the instrument, and the audio effect will be after the instrument. Here we have Mesh for Live, mainly used to create sounds and effects. Here we have the plugins, which are basically external companies which collaborate with Ableton, for example, Massive or Serum, which are very useful for live performances. Here we have our clips, and here our samples. And here in places we have packs where we can store all our material. Here we have our library, our current project, and we could also add more folders if we need them. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Edit Notes in MIDI of Ableton Live 10. Let's start with a MIDI sound. We drag it into the MIDI track and open it with a double click. Now I make the piano roll bigger, and here we have our piano roll. Here we have all the notes, from the lowest to the highest. This blue light needs to be activated to hear the sound. We can play the piano roll in several ways: with the mouse, with our MIDI keyboard, or with our computer's keys, activating this button right here. I am going to explain the correspondence between our computer's keys and the piano notes. The A key corresponds to the note C, the S key with note D, the D key with the note E, the F key with the note F, the J key with the note G, the H key with the note A, and the J key with the note B. We press the Z key to lower octaves and X key to raise octaves. Let's try it. Now I am pressing the A key and the note C3 plays. If I press the Z key once, it will lower one octave. So that when I press the A key, the note C2 will play. If I press the X key twice, it will raise 2 octaves. So now, if I press the A key, the note C4 will play. Here on the left, if I click and drag from the left to right, I can make the piano bigger or smaller vertically. The same applies up here. If I click and drag up and down, the piano roll gets bigger or smaller horizontally. OK, when we open the clip, we get a loop 1 bar long. I can make it longer by selecting the loop, pressing right-click and duplicate loop. I do it again, so now we have a loop 4 bars long. To write notes, we can take the pen up here or press the B key on our keyboard. Now I can split the grid by pressing right-click and choosing between fixed grid or adaptive grid. If I choose fixed grid and select 1 bar, when I click here, it will make a note 1 bar long. We can make the note bigger or smaller by clicking and dragging the note from here. If we select 1/4 bar, it will make notes 1/4 bar long. Let's try it. I select the smallest division in fixed grid and I write a note and zoom in. Now I am going to select in adaptive grid the narrow option, and small grids will appear. If I zoom in even more, smaller grids will appear. To delete it, I deselect the pen, I select all notes, and I press delete. OK, now in fixed grid, I choose 1/4 bar. If I want to write notes in a line, I take the pen and click and drag the mouse. To delete the notes, I do the same, click and drag. Now, in one line, I am going to write notes 1/4 bar long. In another line, notes of 1/8 bar long. And in another line, notes of 1/16 bar long. I can move the piano roll up and down by moving the wheel of the mouse. OK, to select notes, I deselect the pen and click and drag making a rectangle. I can also select the whole line by pressing the piano note. If I click and drag on the piano, all the lines will be selected. By holding Shift down, I can select individual lines or even select different notes. Now I could move them by clicking and dragging, or with the arrow keys on our keyboard, up and down, or left and right. Depending on how our grid division is, the notes will move fast or slow. I could duplicate them by pressing Ctrl D. I could also raise or lower octaves by pressing Shift and then the arrow keys up or down. By clicking and dragging here, I could also change their size. I could go back by pressing Ctrl Z and return by pressing Ctrl Y. I can also select all of them by pressing Ctrl A. And here we have the Fold key that will allow us to visualize the notes that we are using. We can open the volumes window by pressing this combo here. If we click here and drag, we can make it bigger. All these notes correspond to their own volume bar. We can lower the volume of one single note or multiple notes at the same time. We could also draw the volume of the notes with our pen. We can make our loop smaller by clicking and dragging it from here. And with right click, we could crop our clip. For example, we want our clip to start here, and when it gets to a certain point, it stays here in loop. Let's try it. As you can see, we have two combos here. This one above determines the starting point of the loop, and this one below determines the starting point of the clip. Now, if I press play, it will start here, and when it arrives here, it will stay here in loop all the time. If I select the loop, I can move it left or right. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Record and Warping Audio of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, we are going to see how to record an audio and how to work with this audio. Now I am going to record an audio in this audio track. Here in Audio From, if I have the microphone connected to my computer, I select X in. If it is connected by an audio interface, here I need to select my audio interface. Now I arm the track pressing this button here. Arming the track, the squares change to circles, indicating to us that it is ready to record. Let's do a test. I activate the metronome and record some whistles. And here we have it. Let's listen to the sound. I could make this loop smaller. I can move it by clicking and dragging or by using my computer's arrow keys. If we like this loop, we can crop it by pressing right-click, Crop Sample. Okay, now we have this new sound. I duplicate this clip and let's see what else we can do with it. We could turn the volume up or down. We could raise or lower the semitones. We could select reverse. We could double or divide the speed. We could select different types of sound. The Complex and Complex Pro options are more complex and use more CPU power. I could also change the position of the sound waves and move them forward or back. The first step will be to split the grid. The smaller I make it, the more accurate it will be. Now I right-click and choose the smallest one. Now if I double-click up here, these yellow marks will appear. That will allow me to move the sound waves to the left or to the right. If I want this area to stay and not move, I right-click here and generate another mark. So now I could move this wave without moving this area. Now I press play and this wave can be stretched by clicking and dragging the mark. Okay, let's see what else we can do with this new clip. Now I am going to open this envelopes window and here we have even more options. Here we can modulate these two options, the clip and the mixer. If I select clip, I can modulate all these options. Let's try. I press play and select volume modulation. Now with this pen, I could modify this volume red line. As you can see, the automation is reflected here with this blue point. Okay, now I duplicate this clip and select transposition modulation. Now this transposed red line appears, and modifying the red line, I could move the semitones up or down. I duplicate the clip again, and here I select grain size modulation. And I also change the red line. Now I am going to duplicate the first clip and select the mixer option. And here I could modulate all these new parameters. The speaker on corresponds to the on-off of the track. The track panning corresponds to the stereo panning. The track volume is this one here. The X fade assigned corresponds to the track's A-B fade. The A reverb corresponds to the send A, the reverb. and the B delay corresponds to the send B, the delay. Now, to this track, I am going to add an echo effect. And now, let's listen to the different clips. And as you can see, from a simple whistle, the possibilities are practically endless. Okay, and to finish this chapter, I am going to explain how this button works, the launch. The launch has three main parts: launch mode, quantization, and follow action. Launch mode has four different ways to launch the play. If it is in trigger, it will play when we press play, and it will stop when we press stop. If it is in gate, it will play all the time we hold down play, and it will stop when we let it go. If it is in toggle, it will sound when we press play, and it will stop when we press play again. And if it is in repeat, if I press play and hold it down, it will play what is selected in quantization. For example, if I select half bar, when I press and hold play, it will repeat this half bar all the time until I release play, and then it will continue in loop until I press stop again. But in quantization, if 1/4 the bar is selected, when I press and hold play, it will repeat this quarter the bar until I release play. And here we have the follow action. It will indicate what the clip will do when it finishes playing. Let's see how follow action and quantization works. In the first clip, in quantization, I select 2 bars, and in this combo, I select next. I do the same with all the clips. But in the last one, in quantization, I will select 8 bars, and in this combo, I will select first. So now, if I press play on the first clip, it will be playing in loop between all the clips. From the first, we'll go to the second, from the second, we'll go to the third, from the third, we'll go to the fourth, from the fourth, we'll go to the fifth, and from the fifth, we'll go back to the first. And in this last clip, as we have selected in quantization 8 bars, it will stay 8 bars in the previous clip before moving to this one. Let's see it. Now it is here. Now it is in this one. And now it is here. And as you can see, it will stay playing in this clip 8 bars before it moves to the next one. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Record and Quantize of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, we are going to see how the measure and in auto off work, how to record using Midi, and how to quantize our records. Here we have these 2 Midi tracks. Now I press I/O button to open the in auto off window. And now I press the M button to open the mixer. I double click in this clip to open the piano roll. Now I press this button here to activate the Midi keyboard. That will allow me to play notes in my piano roll using my computer's keys or with my Midi keyboard if it is connected. If it is connected, I need to go to Preferences, Midi, look for it here, select it and activate it. Okay, let's try. Now I am pressing some keys on my computer to generate some Midi notes, and we can see it in this flashing yellow indicator. I arm this track pressing this red button here. Now if I press the A key in my computer, I will get Midi information in my Midi track and in my piano roll, which corresponds to the note C3. As you can see, it gets Midi signals, but it doesn't make any sound, because the track doesn't have any instrument in it, just notes. To make sounds, I need to add an instrument, so I select one from here and drag it to the track, and now it makes sounds. Okay, now I am going to explain how the in-auto-off works. If we press off, we get Midi signal coming in, but the track doesn't make any sound. If we press auto, the track needs to be armed in order to make sounds. And if we press in, the track will always make sounds. Okay, now I am going to drag an instrument to this other track. So now we have two different instruments, one in each track. If I press in on this track, this track will make a sound. And if I press in on this other track, this one will make a sound. Pressing in both tracks, the two tracks will play at the same time. If I want to listen the sound in this track, and if I want to listen and record in the other one, I need to press in on this track and arm the track in this other one, where I would like to listen and record. Now I open it with a double click, and this shows what I have been recording. I could also record in both tracks at the same time. To do that, both tracks need to be armed. To arm the second track, I need to press Ctrl first. As you can see now, both tracks are ready to record. Now I am going to record something in these two clips. Let's have a look. Here we have one, and here we have the other one. Okay, let's see now how the multi-clip option works. I duplicate the second track by selecting it and pressing Ctrl D. I can move this clip to make it easy to see. I do the same with this other clip. Press play this scene and the three clips will play at the same time. Okay, now I am going to select these three clips. I click on this one first, then press Shift and then click on the third one. Now the three clips are selected and will appear down here in three different loop bars. This option could be very useful because I could work on some notes in one clip, taking into account the position of the notes from other clips. Let's have a look. Now we are going to see the mixer window. Here we have the volume. These yellow buttons are the on-off of the tracks. We could do solo on a track by pressing this S button. We could also do solo on several tracks at the same time, pressing Ctrl. This dial is the panning left-right of the speakers. In this window, this wheel will show us the running position of our clip. And this number shows us how many beats this clip has. And here it shows the maximum peak level of the volume. We could reset it with a double click. OK, let's now have a look at the Quantize section. We open a new Midi track, we arm the track, we drag an instrument and we record something. Now I open it with a double click, press right click and divide the grid in a quartet bar. And now to quantize, I press right click, quantize settings. And here in Quantize 2, I also select one quartet bar. Here in Adjust Note, I can choose Start, and the note will be adjusted here at the start. Or choose End, and the note will be adjusted at the end. I could also choose Start and End, so the note will be adjusted on both sides. In Amount, I have to select which percentage. For example, if I select 100%, the note will fit perfectly at the start or at the end. If I select less than 100%, the note will not fit accurately to the grid. This could be useful to generate a more human effect. Let's do a test. I am going to select Quantize to a quarter. I select Start 100% and press OK. I zoom in, and as you can see, the adjustment at the start of the note is perfect. Let's do another try. Undo by pressing Ctrl Z, right click, Quantize settings. And now instead of 100%, I choose for example 84%. Press OK and let's see what it does. Now as you can see, the adjustment at the start of the note is less accurate. Now for example, I change and select Start, End and 100%. Press OK. Now as you can see, the note fits perfectly to the grid, both at the start and at the end. If we now are happy with these parameters, we don't have to do it again in the future. Just by pressing Ctrl U, this quantizes it. Let's have a look. I undo again by pressing Ctrl Z. For example, if we have these newly recorded notes, we could quantize them with just 2 clicks, pressing Ctrl A and then Ctrl U. With Ctrl A, we select everything, and with Ctrl U, it quantizes what we have previously selected in Quantize setting parameters. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter Drum Rack of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, we are going to see how drum rack and macros work. Okay, I am going to start by opening the drum rack by double-clicking here in Drums. The drum rack is like a keypad, in where each button you can store your sounds, effects, and instruments. Each button corresponds with our piano roll. Okay, let's have a look. I double-click in the drum rack to open the piano roll, and all these notes that appear here correspond with all these buttons that we have here, from the lowest, the C-2, to the highest, the G8. All the sounds that we have in these buttons, we could play them by clicking the piano roll, by pressing our computer's keys, or with our Midi keyboard. For that, I need to activate this button here. As you can see, pressing the A key on my keyboard, the note C3 is activated. If I press the S key, the note D3 is activated, and they match to the notes of these buttons. And it is also indicated in these small squares here. You could lower octaves by pressing the Z key, and you could raise octaves by pressing the X key. This is explained in more detail in Chapter 6, Edit Notes in Midi. All these small squares match with these drum rack buttons. As you can see, the drum rack is a very powerful tool, since we could have a lot of sounds available here to play with our Midi keyboard, with our computer's keys, or even to write notes in our piano roll and make our clips. Let's try. We look for a sound and drag it to C3 note button. That corresponds to the A key on our keyboard. Now we take another sound and drag it to this 3 note button. That corresponds to the S key on our keyboard. And now we look for another sound and drag it to E3 note button. That corresponds to the D key on our keyboard. So now we have a drum rack using only 3 keys from our computer. You could also change the parameters of each sound individually. In each of these buttons, we could drag one or more sounds, which will play at the same time. To do that, we need to hold down the Alt key. Let's do a try. If we double-click the button, the sound will appear here. we could change their parameters individually. We could also add effects individually. We could add effects to the sound, we could add effects to the entire button, or we could add effects to the track, affecting the entire track. So we could say that we are creating and designing our own sounds. If we press these combos up here, we could see everything more in order and which sound belongs to which. We can do solo, mute, regulate the volume, if we press double-click on our clip, we could see the buttons we are using and we could write notes in our piano roll. Now we press play and as you can see, we could modify the parameters in live. We can do solo, we can mute in the sound or in the button. Okay, now in the drum rack we have these three buttons here. This one here opens and closes the selected button. For example, if this button is selected, this one will open and close the keypad button, showing what is inside. This button here shows us the buttons that we are now using. And this button here opens and closes the macros. Okay, let's see how macros work. The potential of macros is that we could control with just one dial several parameters at the same time. To know which parameter we can map, we need to press this map button here, and the parameters that change color are the ones that we can map. Let's do a try. If I want to map the frequency to macro 1, I use right-click in frequency and I choose Map Macro 1. So now, moving the Macro 1 dial, the frequency parameter will move too. I could also adjust the maximum and the minimum frequency just by pressing the Map button. And here I can adjust the minimum frequency value. And here I can adjust the maximum frequency value. Okay, now I am going to map the parameter transpose to macro 1 by pressing right-click on transpose and choosing Map to macro 1. As you can see now, moving the macro 1, the frequency and transpose parameters are moving too. And I could do the same with the rest of the parameters. As you can see, pressing the Midi button, the macros change their color, indicating to us that they could be controlled by our remote Midi keyboard. This option could be really useful for live performances. The macros could be automated as well. Let's do a try. First, I copy the clip here, and now I paste it in the arrangement view. I make the clip bigger, I press loop, and I press the automation button. Pressing macro 1, this red line will appear. And this red line is the one that we are going to automatize. Clicking on this red line, these dots will appear. And now I could move them up or down. So now when I press play, the timeline is going to read the automation. And here you can see that the macro is being automated. However, we will talk more about the arrangement and automation in another chapter later on. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter: Organized Clips, Scenes and Record of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, we are going to see how we organize our clips in Session View, how to sort and prepare our scenes to record, and how we record them. Okay, let's try it. Now we are in Session View, and here we have these audio clips. We are going to try different ways to find the best option. The first thing we are going to do is listen to the clips and become familiar with all of them. Then we will try to find a clip we like for the beginning of the song. As you can see, on every track, we can play only one clip at a time. Now I select this clip for the beginning of the song. So I will put the rest of the clips aside for now, and this clip I will put here in first position. Now I keep testing them one at a time. Until I find the right clip for the second position. This clip, for example, sounds good to me. So I will put it here in the second position. And I will keep testing. I like how this clip complements the sound, so I will put it here in third position. As you can see, I am placing the clips in the right position so that I can record the scenes in order later on. I keep trying. Now I choose this one to be in fourth position, and I keep trying. I like how these two clips sound when I alternate them. I am going to duplicate them and play them twice, alternating between them. To duplicate a clip, I select the clip and then press Ctrl D, and then I can move the clip. I could also duplicate it in another way. I can select the clip, and now pressing the Ctrl key, I could drag the clip to where I want it. Okay, if we are happy with the sound, and it is clear how the clips are going to play, the next step will be to prepare and sort the scenes to record them in order, scene by scene. As you can see, each scene plays individually. So if we want these clips to play all together in the same scene, we have to duplicate them by selecting the clip first and pressing Ctrl D. We do the same with the rest. First, I select the clip and press Ctrl D. I do the same thing here, and here too. And these two clips at the end will play alternating. Okay, now we have the scenes ready to record. But before we do that, we are going to do a test to see how it sounds. Now at this point, mute and solo could be very useful. Here, for example, when clip 5 plays, it sounds better to me without clip 4. So I select clip 4 and delete it. And the same thing happens when clip 6 plays. It sounds better without clip 4. So in this case, I will delete it too. And the same thing happens here, so I will also delete these two clips. We can stop one track by pressing this stop button here. all the tracks together by pressing this top button right here. Now that we have the scenes ready to record, we will do one last test. And if we like the result, we will proceed to record the scenes one by one in order, so that they will be recorded in the arrangement view too. Let's try it. Okay, now I am happy with the result, so I proceed to record it. To record it, I press this record button here and I will play the scenes in order. Now I move to the arrangement view and here we have it. Now I need to press this red button to be able to work on these clips in the arrangement view. In the next chapter, we are going to see what else we can do in the arrangement view and how to automatize it. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Arrangement and Automation of Ableton Live 10. Now I have recorded these clips in the arrangement view. Let's see what else we can do. I can resize the clips. I can select them individually by pressing Ctrl, or select all of them by pressing Shift and then pressing the first and the last clip. By pressing right-click, I can select one of these options to make the grids smaller or larger. If I choose one bar, the clip will span one bar at a time. But if I choose 2 bars, the clip will span 2 bars at a time. I could duplicate the track by selecting it and pressing Ctrl D. To undo it, I press Ctrl Z. By pressing right-click, I can change the color or rename it. I can also zoom in by clicking up here and dragging it down. I can also move the tracks from left to right. I can loop, clicking the loop button here. I can also change the position of the tracks without affecting the final sound. I can also select the clips by pressing and dragging, making a rectangle. And now I can delete them. I can also duplicate them by selecting the clips and then pressing Ctrl D. If I divide the grid by 1/8, I can also do this. I select it and then duplicate it. Now I change the grid to 1 bar. Now selecting these clips and pressing right click, I can copy them and paste them here by pressing right click. I zoom in and press play. If I want to delete it, I select it and press delete. I undo it by pressing Ctrl Z. Selecting the clips, I can move them left or right by dragging them or using the arrow keys. According to the grid division, using the arrow keys, I can move the clips slower or faster. Okay, now if I want to add an effect to a track, I select the track first and then double-click in the effect. Now I move the loop and press play. If I want to hear only one track, I press solo. I can disable the echo by pressing this yellow button here. If I want to copy the same echo to another track, I select the effect up here, right-click and copy. Then I select the track where I want to paste it, and here, right-click and paste. If I want to delete the echo, I select it and press delete. Okay, now we are going to see the automation section. So now I insert an EQ into the track 1, I zoom in, I can press this combo here to open the audio clip. And now, to automatize it, I press this button right here. As you can see, this red line appears here. Now, I press play to explain how it works. Imagine that I want to automatize this filter and I want it to make this movement. As you can see, the frequency parameter is moving. To summarize, if I want to automatize the frequency of this filter number 1, first I select filter number 1, then I select the frequency, and this red line that appears here is the one that I want to automatize. By pressing on it, these small points will appear, which I can move up or down. I can also modify the red line with my pen. The smaller the grid split is, the softer the line will be. If I want to automatize the Q parameter to this filter number 1, I select it first and then a new red line of automation will appear. As you can see, now we have two different lines of automation. One corresponds to the frequency, and the other one corresponds to the Q parameter. Let's press play to see what it does. Okay, I had automated the filter 1, but I can also automate any of the rest of the filters, number 2, 3, 4, etc. Each of them have their own red line of automation. If we are happy with this automation, we could duplicate the clip, and as you can see, the automation duplicates too. I can also copy and paste the clip by pressing right-click, copy, and right-click paste. We can combine clips with or without automation. We can see the effects in the arrangement view and in session view. We can add the effects to the tracks, to the channels, and even to the master channel. We select the channel, and here we have it. We select the master, and here we have it. Okay, now I am going to explain how this lock works. Basically, its function is to save the automation. Let's try it. I select this clip and now press the lock. As you can see, I move the clip, but the automation stays where it is. And finally, I am going to explain how these arrows and set work. And I'm going to explain it with an example. I select everything pressing Ctrl A, I duplicate it pressing Ctrl D, and I change the color. I duplicate it again, and I change the color again. So now I have three different colored zones. Okay, imagine for example that these three zones, instead of being 4 minutes long, they were 1 hour long for a live performance, and that each zone has a different rhythm. So you could have the zones divided and ready for your performance. If, for example, this red zone has a rate of 130, I could add a mark on it. To do this, I move the starting point of the loop at the beginning of the zone and press Set. And now I can rename it by pressing right-click Rename, and I write 130. And if this green zone has a rate of 140, I can also add another mark here. To do this, I move the starting point of the loop at the beginning of the zone and press Set again. I rename it by pressing right-click Rename, and I write 140. So now I press play, and if I want to move to the 130 zone, I need to press this arrow here. And if I want to advance to the 140 zone, I need to press the forward arrow again. And if I wanted to go back to the previous zone, I have to press the back arrow. Okay, I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. See you in the next one. Hello and welcome to this new chapter, Preferences and Export of Ableton Live 10. In this chapter, I would like to explain how to set up initial and export preferences. On Mac, preferences will be in this corner in Live Preferences, and on PC, preferences will be here in Options Preferences. Okay, here in Look field, we have the language. All of this stays as it is. Here we have the zoom screen. that we can make bigger or smaller. This stays as it is. Here in colors, we can choose between different types of colors: light, dark, brightness, color intensity, color tone. This stays as it is. OK, here in audio, in driver type, if it is Mac, we choose Chord Audio, and if it is PC, we choose ASIO or MME Directs. On my computer, MME Directs works best. OK, here in Input and Output Audio, you will find the default microphone and speaker. If our audio interface was installed, it would appear here. At In-Out, we select 48,000, especially if we are planning to make videos with our songs later on. We can leave it in high quality. Here in latency, it will depend on your computer's ability. On my computer, this selection works very well. There are computers that work better by selecting 1024 in input and output. Here we can compensate the error in milliseconds, trying to get as close as possible to zero. This stays as it is. OK, here in Midi, our Midi keyboard will show up if it is installed. If it doesn't show up here, we will need to look for it here, select it and activate it. OK, here we have the file folder. We leave all this as it is. If we have installed a plugin, we can rescan it to find it. For Mac, the audio unit and VST options will appear, and for PC, only the VST option will appear. Here at Library, we leave everything as it is. Here we have Record Warp Launch. In File Type, we leave it in WAV. In Bit Type, we select 24. At Count In, we select 1 bar. In Exclusive, we keep ARM and Solo activated. In Clip Update Rate, 1/16 is fine. In Record Session Automation, we keep ARM tracks activated, and here we select On. OK, here we have Warp Fades. Here we leave it in Auto. Here we activate On. Here in Default Warp Mode, we select Bits. Here on Create Fades on Clips Edges, we select On. And here at Launch, in the Default Launch option, we select Trigger. In Quantization, we select Global. Select on Launch, On. Select Next Scene on Launch, On. Starting Recording on Scene Launch, No. And here in Tap Tempo, On. And here we have the licenses and maintenance. OK, and this is all about preferences. Let's have a look now at the export section. OK, if we are working on a project that is not finished yet and we want to work on it later on, we need to save it. To do that, we select File and then Collect All and Save. OK, imagine for example that this project is ready and we want to export it. Things to keep in mind: all tracks must be activated. The loop needs to start at the beginning of the song and needs to finish at the end of the song, taking into account the possibility of latent sounds. I am going to explain it with an example. As you can see, there is an echo in this track, so even if the song ends here, the sounds will end later. So the loop bar needs to cover the whole length of the sound. If not, the song will end very abruptly. OK, Once we have everything ready to export, we press File, Export Audio Video. And now, in this window, we need to set it up. OK, here in Track Selection, we can choose between all these options. We can choose between individual tracks or the master. If we want to export the whole song, we choose Master. Here it tells us our loop position that we have already done in the arrangement view. Render as a loop off, convert to mono off, and normalize off, especially if we plan to master our song later on to have a little room available to turn up the volume. Create analysis file on. Sampling rate, we select 48,000, especially if we plan to make a video with this song later on. Here in PCM, we select on. File type, WAV. In bit depth, we select 24. We could lower it to 16 if we plan to make a CD. If we plan to master the song no titter. MP3, we select off. Upload to SoundCloud off. Create video off. And when everything is ready, we press Export. We select where we want to export it. We write a title and we save it. I hope you found this chapter interesting and useful. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and if you found this course beneficial, please leave a review.